Chapter 4.
This is a bad night for us, Manus called out to Ollie. He pondered a while. The sound of voices borne faintly across the water decided him. It was probably Anne and the lad Donald talking. Manus climbed back onto the rowboat and with a sail knife ripped it here and there. It filled and then heavy with the weight of a great ball of stone which Ollie handed to him. It sank. We'll hide the man behind the windsheet, below the spare sail till we're out at sea, Ollie. Quick, give me a hand. Anne's voice came to them then, hailing silver sweet across the water. With death white face and shaking limbs, Manus MacLeod stood holding the mast, and with a loud voice, firm and strong, called out to ask if the Acanas were back yet, and if so, for Donald to row her out at once. Half an hour passed, and then there she was, laughing about Seamus's vain efforts to detain her. She told Manus that as she'd come down towards the harbour, she'd heard Manus singing. Then by the water's edge she'd come upon Donald lying upon his back, bound and gagged. After she released him, they waited to see what would happen. On his side, Manus told her briefly that the two Acana brothers had come to persuade him to leave without her. When he'd refused, they had departed, uttering threats against her as well as himself. I heard their quarrelling voices as they rode into the gloom. And now, my Anne, is it coming with me ye are, and just as ye are? Sure, you'll never repent it, and you'll have all that you want that I can give. Dear of my heart, say that you'll be coming away with me this night of nights. By the black stone on Ilconkill, I swear it, and by the sun and by the moon and by himself, I am trusting you, Manus dear. Sure, it is not for me to be going back to that house after what has been done and said. I go with you now, and willingly. And this was the way that my friend Anne Gillespie left Alan Moore to go to the Isles of the West. For all the evil omens, the marriage of Anne and Manus MacLeod went well. He was more silent than of yesteryear, and men avoided rather than sought him out. But he was happy with Anne, his dear. Anne never knew what had happened, though it is possible she suspected something. All that was known to her was that Marcus and Gloom Acana had disappeared, was supposed to have been drowned. There was now no Acana upon Ellen Moor, for Seamus had taken a horror of the place and his loneliness. As soon as it was commonly admitted that his two brothers had been drowned, he disposed of the island farm and left Alan Moore forever. When month after month went by, and no hint of ill came to break their peace, Manus grew light-hearted once again. Once more his songs were heard as he came back from fishing, or lighted ashore mending his nets. A new happiness was nigh to them, for Anne was with child. Ah, but there was fear also, for the gal was not well at the time when her labour was near. There came a day when Manus had to go to Lochboysdale in southwest. It was with pain and something of foreboding that he sailed away from Banmaray and the sound of Harris where he lived. On the third night he returned to be met by Katrine Macaulay, the wife of his mate, with the news that after he'd left, Anne had sent for the priest, for she felt the coming of death. It was that very evening she had died and taken the child with her. Manus had, as one in a dream, it seemed to him that the tide was ebbing in his heart, and a cold, sleety rain was falling through a mist in his brain. The man is going mad, I fear, whispered the priest, and the whisperings grew around the village folk of Banmaray. It was dusk when Manus came out of his house. He saw that it was to be a cloudy night, and perhaps it was this that after a brief while made him turn in his aimless walk and go back to the house. He was sitting before the flaming heart of the peats, brooding in his pain, when suddenly he heard, loud and clear and close, as though played under the very window of the room, the cold white notes of an oaten flute. Ah, too well he knew that wild, fantastic air. Who could it be but Glumacana playing upon his fiddon? And what air could it be but the Dan-Nan-Ron? Was that the dead man standing there unseen in the shadow of the grave? Was that Marcus with the knife still thrust up to the hilt and the long foam upon his lips? With a savage cry, Manus snatched up a long dirk from its place by the chimney and rushed out. But there was no one, nothing. Not a sound. With a listless droop of his arms, MacCodrum turned and went back into his house again. He remembered what Glumacana had said. You'll hear the Dan-Nan-Ron the night before you die, Manus MacCodrum, and lest you doubt it, you'll hear it in your death hour.